Rain hammered the site like it wanted to bury us all. I was up on the scaffolding, checking the beams for straightness, when her sleeve rode up. Lena, the carpenter everyone relied on, always kept herself covered. Long sleeves buttoned tight, even in the damp heat. But that afternoon, as she swung her hammer, the fabric shifted. There it was, a scar, jagged and old, snaking up her forearm like a dried riverbed. It caught the gray light, pulling my eyes. Without thinking, I said it out loud. That looks like it hurt. Her hammer stopped midair, eyes hardened like frost on a window. She tugged the sleeve down and turned away, shoulders rigid. The words hung there, heavy as the downpour. Silence started then, thick and unrelenting, pulling me under. I felt it settle in my chest, a quiet ache that wouldn't let go. Dust from the foundation work hung in the air like a fine grit, coating my boots and the back of my throat. I'd driven out to this rural build 2 weeks back, fresh from a city job that felt too polished for my hands. The site sprawled across a flat stretch of Montana land, fields rolling out to the horizon under a sky that could turn on you fast. As site manager, I was here to keep things moving. Permits, schedules, the endless push against weather and delays. The crew was a mix of locals, faces weathered like the old barn wood we were framing into walls. They nodded when I arrived that first morning, tools clanging as they set up. Lena's name came up before I even saw her. "She's the one who makes it all hold," one of the framers said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Precise cuts, no wasted motion," that's what they said. She kept the crew steady, her work the backbone when tempers frayed over measurements or supply runs. I pictured someone broad-shouldered, maybe gruff. But when she stepped up from the tool shed, it was quieter than that. Tall, with dark hair tied back under a worn cap, she moved like the land itself, deliberate, unyielding. Her jeans were faded at the knees, work boots scarred from years of nails and splinters. She didn't smile, just nodded at my introductions, eyes scanning the plans I unrolled on the hood of my truck. First interaction hit right after the morning huddle. I handed out assignments, clipboard in hand, pointing to sections of the blueprint. "Lena, you're on the east framing. Start with the headers." Her grip on the clipboard was firm, calluses rough against the paper as she took it. Voice low and direct, she said, "Got it. Lumber's kiln dried?" No hello, no extra words, just that question, sharp as a chisel. I nodded, caught off guard by the steadiness in her tone. It cut through the crew's chatter, pulling focus. The others bantered about the heat already building, jokes about cold beers at quitting time, but her presence quieted it. She handed the board back and walked to her stack of 2x4s, saw in hand, without another glance. I watched her work that first hour, pretending to check the foundation stakes. Sleeves always buttoned, even as the sun climbed and sweat beaded on necks around her. The air smelled of fresh-cut pine and diesel from the generator. She measured twice, cut once, every piece fitting like it was born to. Crew banter faded into rhythm, hammers thudding, saws whining. But my eyes kept drifting to her arms, the way the fabric clung in the rising warmth. Why cover up? Heat like this made shirts stick, but she didn't roll them. It nagged at me, a small puzzle in the bigger machine of the build. Break came around noon, sun high and merciless. We gathered under the shade of the supply truck, water bottles passed around. Lena leaned against a beam, separate from the circle, picking at a sandwich from her cooler. Her sleeves stayed put, buttons glinting. I tried to join the talk. Stories of small-town winters, the way snow piled drifts against fences, but my gaze slipped again. As she reached for her thermos, the cuff shifted just enough. There, the scar. Pale against her tan skin, maybe 3 inches long, twisted like barbed wire. Old, faded at the edges. Curiosity won. "Hey, Lena, that scar. Looks like a story. Fall from a ladder?" Her reaction was immediate. Face closed like a slammed door, jaw tightening under the cap's brim. She pulled the sleeve down, slow, deliberate, eyes flicking to mine for a beat, cold, guarded, then away. Nodded once, sharp, and stood. "Not now." Walked off toward the stacks, hammer swinging at her side. The crew didn't notice, lost in their laughs, but the air felt thicker around me. I stood there, thermos halfway to my lips, words echoing in my head. Casual, I'd thought. just talk. But her back was straight, steps measured, like she'd rebuilt a wall in seconds. End of day dragged after that. Sun dipped low, painting the half-frame structure in orange. Crew packed up, tools clinking into boxes, trucks rumbling to life on the gravel drive. I lingered by the office trailer, signing off logs, but really waiting. Maybe an apology, or just a chance to smooth it. Lena loaded her saws last. Movements efficient, not rushed. She glanced my way once, eyes unreadable in the fading light, then climbed into her truck. Engine growled, taillights cutting red through the dust as she drove off. The site emptied, wind whispering through the open beams. I felt the weight of her avoidance already, settling like the evening chill. That scar, whatever it held, had cracked something between us before we'd even started. The next morning brought fog over the fields, thick and clinging, mirroring the haze in my head as work resumed. Fog clung to the ground that next morning, muting the sunrise as the crew trickled in. I parked my truck on the gravel, thermos in hand. The site's edges blurred like my thoughts. Hammers started up soon after, a steady thud echoing across the field. Saws whined through lumber, the air filling with the sharp scent of pine shavings. I walked the perimeter, clipboard tucked under my arm, overseeing the progress. Foundations were set, walls rising uneven against the mist. But Lena's corner drew my eye, her workstation at the east end, where she framed alone. No chatter from her, just the precise bite of her saw. She didn't look up as I passed, her cap pulled low, sleeves buttoned tight once more. She moved through the framing like it was muscle memory, measuring boards with a worn tape, nails driven clean in one swing. I tried to catch her rhythm, but the silence from that spot felt deliberate, a wall thicker than the beams she cut. Around noon, I approached with a question about the load-bearing specs, hoping to bridge yesterday's gap. Lena, this lumber holding up? Any splits I should flag? She paused, hammer mid-grip, eyes on the wood. Fine. One word. Flat as the plane she smoothed over a joint. No glance my way, just back to work. I stood there a beat too long, the crew's distant laughs underscoring the quiet between us. Nodded and moved on, but the rebuff stuck, like a splinter under skin. Lunch hit under the supply truck, shadows lengthening as the sun broke through. Crew sprawled on tailgates, passing around sandwiches and tales of small-town gripes. The bar that jacked prices after harvest, the way winter locked roads for days. Remember that storm last year? Buried my truck up to the cab, one guy said, chuckling through a mouthful. Laughter rippled, easy in the warmth. Lena sat apart, back against a tire, her cooler open but untouched beyond a sandwich. Scar hidden again, sleeve cuff peeking just white against her wrist. She ate slow, gaze on the horizon where fields met sky, not joining the circle. I sat nearby, thermos balanced on my knee, but the stories washed over me. My mind wandered to that mark, jagged line, pale against her tan. Was it from a fall? Maybe off a roof in her early days? Or a fight, something heated in this close-knit place where words cut deep. Something deeper, tied to loss. The kind that leaves you covering up. It pulled at me, unanswered, while the crew's voices faded to hum. Afternoon rush kicked in hard after that. Heat built, shirts sticking as we pushed to square the frame before quitting. A beam shifted sudden, one end dropping under weight from the stack above. Dust puffed up, tools clattering. "Lena, brace it, left side!" I called out, heart jumping as I grabbed the other end. She was there in seconds, no hesitation, wedging a scrap under to level it. Muscles tensed in her arms, but she didn't look my way, eyes fixed on the wood, adjusting with a shove that locked it steady. The crew exhaled, someone muttering thanks, but her silence lingered like the grit in the air. We reset, hammers resuming, but that moment replayed. Her quick save. The way she moved without a word. It stirred something. Admiration mixed with the ache of her distance. Quitting time came with the sun low, casting long shadows over the half-built shell. Trucks idled, engines rumbling as the crew loaded up. Coolers slamming, sawdust brushed from jeans. I lingered by the trailer, logs half-filled, really just waiting. Maybe she'd pass close, offer a nod. Anything to crack the quiet. Lena finished last, coiling extension cords with steady pulls, tools sliding into her box one by one. She hefted it to her truck bed, movements unhurried, then climbed in. Door thudded shut. No glance, no pause. Engine turned over, tires crunching gravel as she drove off, dust trailing into the dusk. Sight emptied fast after, wind picking up through the open studs. I stood there, hands in pockets, the weight of another avoided word settling heavier. Night fell heavy that evening, stars sharp over the flatland. I drove to my rental cabin a mile out, gravel road winding past silent fields. Inside, the place felt too still. Wood stove cold, chair by the window empty. I replayed the day, the scar pulling at me like an unanswered question. That casual comment, meant light, had shut her down. Why? The mark's twist haunted, rough edges imagined under my fingers. Sleep came slow, rural quiet pressing in, broken only by coyotes far off. Days blurred into a week. The scar's shadow lengthened as her silence deepened. Monday dragged like a chain through mud. Lena's truck was already there when I pulled up, gravel still damp from overnight dew. She dove into the siding work early, panels clicking into place under her hands, nails driven with that same unerring force. The site stirred slow, crew shaking off the weekend, but her corner hummed alone. I walked over with the updated prints, stomach tight. Lena, measurements on this run? Need to double-check the pitch. She didn't pause, just kept leveling a board, eyes on the line. Ignored me flat, like I was wind over the fields. I stood there, prints curling in the breeze, then turned away. The silence bit deeper now. Not just avoidance, but a deliberate cut. Crew noticed by mid-morning, glances flicking between us as they hauled joists. Whispers started low, over coffee mugs, by the tool racks. What's eating her? Usually talks shop. One of the framers nudged me during a water break, voice casual but probing. Lena's off. You're calling something? I deflected quick, focusing on permits stacked in the trailer. Just weather holding us. Let's push the exterior before more rain. They nodded, but the air felt charged, like before a storm. I buried myself in paperwork, stamps thudding on forms. But her presence pulled at the edges. Silent, steady, building walls higher than the ones we framed. Mid-morning break came with clouds thickening overhead, rain threatening in dark rolls. We huddled under the awning by the supply shed, thunder rumbling distant like a warning. Lena finished a panel and kept going, tools clinking as drops started. I called out, voice carrying over the wind. Shelter here. Get under before it hits. She glanced once, cap brim low, then chose the downpour. Water soaked her shirt in seconds, dark patches spreading, but she didn't flinch. Hammered on, siding slapping wet against the frame. I watched from the edge, thermos warm in my hands, the crew's chatter fading. Why push through? The rain sheeted down, blurring her shape, but that choice stuck, her against the world. Sleeves clinging now, scar hidden but imagined under the fabric. Her quiet strength drew me harder that day, a pull like gravity in the flatland. Watching her work, rain sluicing off her shoulders, I saw the layers. Not just skill, but something forged in isolation. The way she handled the saw, steady through the wet. The scar turned in my mind, no longer a mark, but a map to what she hid. Jagged path up her arm, faded white against skin browned by sun. It whispered of breaks, of healing alone, stories buried under button cuffs. In this rural stretch, where folks guarded hurts like family secrets, it made sense. But it stirred me, that hidden line, wanting to trace it, to know the weight she carried. The rain eased by lunch, but the ache settled, mixing with the mud underfoot. Afternoon brought complication, heat rising steam from the ground. A cut went wrong elsewhere. One of the newer guys misjudged a bevel on the trim, edge splintering under the saw. Wood cracked loud, drawing heads. Stop, redo it, I said, stepping in. But the fit was off, throwing the whole run. I needed her eye. The one who saw flaws before they showed. Lena, take a look. Can we salvage? She was closest, tools down, but she signaled the framer beside her with a nod, jerking her head his way. No words, just that motion, sharp as a blade. He handled it, her back turned to me again, siding panels stacking neat. The crew fixed it eventual, sweat mixing with earlier rain. but her deflection landed heavy. I managed the reroute, voice steady for the others, but inside it twisted. The want for her input, for any crack in the quiet. Evening alone hit as the site emptied, sun breaking low through clouds. Crew trucks rumbled out, dust kicking up in farewell waves. I stayed to lock the trailer, shadows stretching long over the half-shelled build. Lena finished last, as always, wiping tools with a rag, movements deliberate in the cooling air. She loaded up without a glance, engine catching gravel as she left. Sight went still, wind sifting through the open studs, carrying the scent of wet pine. I traced the scar in my mind then, sitting on a sawhorse, hands idle, imagined its texture, rough ridges, smooth fades, wanting to touch the story behind it. Not just see, but feel the years it held, the pain she buttoned away. The pull grew, a low throb, her silence echoing in the empty space. Sleepless hours stretched that night, rural quiet amplifying everything. Cabin windows dark, fields whispering outside. No city hum to drown regret. I lay there, sheets twisted, replaying the week, the comment that started it, her eyes hardening like frost. Why did it hit so? The scar wasn't ugly, just real, a mark of survival in this hard land. But my words had pride, and now the wanting built like storm clouds, heavy and inevitable. Her strength, her distance, it mirrored my own guards, cracked long ago in this conservative stretch where glances lingered too long. Sleep dodged me, coyotes yipping far off, the ache settling deep. By Wednesday, the isolation cracked something in me. I sought ways to bridge the gap. Wednesday morning broke clear, sun cutting through the haze like a fresh-cut edge. I stopped at the diner on the way in, the kind with chipped mugs and coffee that tasted of burnt earth. Ordered extras, black, no sugar, the way I'd seen her take it once. 2 cups steamed in the carriers I pulled onto the site, gravel popping under tires. Crew was already milling, tools clanging, but Lena's truck sat parked, hood warm to the touch. She was at her station, marking siding with pencil strokes, cap low. I walked over casual, carrier in hand, and set 1 cup near her tools, steam curling up like a question. Figured you could use this. No response. She kept marking, line straight and sure. By break, it sat untouched, coffee gone cold, lid untouched. I poured it out later, the waste bitter as the quiet between us. Work pushed on, heat building in the open air. Headers needed measuring for the upper frame, big spans that couldn't afford error. The crew paired off, but one spot forced us together. The blueprint, demanding her eye and mine. We knelt side by side on the dirt, tape stretched taut between posts. Her hands moved quick, hook snapping to the end, numbers called low. 18 1/4. I nodded, jotting it, our knees inches apart in the dust. As she retracted, the tape whipped back fast, metal clinking. Our hands almost brushed, fingers grazing air, close enough to feel the warmth off her skin. She pulled away sharp, standing without a word, dust sifting from her jeans. I stayed knelt a second longer, pulse steady but off, the nearness lingering like sawdust in lungs. That touch, not quite, flashed a memory then, unbidden. The scar's texture rose in my mind, rough ridges where it twisted, faded smooth at the ends like old rope weathered by wind. I'd imagined it before, but now it stirred deeper, an ache I couldn't name. Not pity, not curiosity alone. Something pulled low in my gut, wanting to follow that line up her arm, to press palm to the story it held. Heat flushed my face as I stood, blueprint curling in the breeze. She was already at the next mark, back turned, hammer waiting. I shook it off, but the image stuck, her hidden mark a thread tugging me closer. Crew event came that evening, after hours under a sky turning pink. Barbecue at the old field edge, grills smoking with burgers and ribs, the scent of charred meat mixing with creek mud. Someone dragged out coolers, chairs scattered on grass worn thin by tractors. Talk flowed easy. Harvest yields, the bar's new owner, laughs sharp as cold beer. Lena showed brief, truck pulling up late, cap traded for a faded shirt. She stood at the edge, away from the fire's glow, hands in pockets, eyes on the flames dancing low. Smoke curled up, casting shadows on her face, sleeves rolled just once, scar hidden still. Crew called her over, plates in hand, but she waved it off, grabbing a soda from the ice. I approached slow, plate balanced, fire heat at my back. Casual, I aimed. "Lena, you been at this long? Carpentry? Looks like second nature." She turned slight, eyes flicking to the fire, then me. Mutters came low. "Old jobs. Farms, mostly. Started young." Words clipped, like nails spaced too tight. "No more, just that." She shifted, gazed back to the blaze, the orange light playing on her jaw. I stood there, plate cooling, the crew's laughter pulling distant. Tried one more. "Farms around here? Tough land." She nodded once, then stepped away, toward her truck. "Early start." Door creaked open, engine catching as she drove off, taillights fading into the dark fields. Fire popped behind me, but her words hung thin, the gap no narrower. Drive home that night, gravel crunched under tires, road winding past silent pastures. Moon hung low, silver on barbed wire fences. Silence echoed from the seat beside me, empty, her mutters replaying faint. It left me hollow, chest tight like a clamped joist. Drawn to her still, that edge where strength met the hidden break. The scar pulled again in thought, rough under imagined touch, stirring want that settled deep. Cabin lights flickered as I neared, but sleep felt far, the day's reaches falling short. Her armor felt familiar in the quiet hours, heavy as the quilt over me. Mine had cracked long ago in this conservative town, where looks lingered in diners, whispers followed steps. Past loves left marks too, invisible, aching from doors shut too soon. Lena's felt the same, built high against the wind, but wanting her chipped at it. Slow. The pull undeniable. Friday tests limits. A sight issue forces proximity, heightening the unspoken pull. Friday broke with a sky heavy as lead, clouds rolling in from the west like they meant business. I arrived early, thermos fogging the truck window, the air already thick with the scent of coming rain. Crew milled slow, tools half out, eyes on the horizon where thunderheads built. Lena's truck was there, parked crooked, her figure already at the frame, securing loose ends before the blow. Winds picked up sharp by mid-morning, whipping dust across the site, tarp snapping like flags in a gale. "Secure everything. Storm's hitting fast," I called, voice cutting through the gusts. Crew scrambled, stakes hammered deeper, but the wind tore at the siding panels, loose ones rattling loose. It forced us together then, the storm demanding hands on the same ropes. Lena and I ended up at the north end, wrestling a massive tarp over the exposed beams, fabric billowing wild. Rain started sudden, sheets of it slanting hard, soaking through my jacket in seconds. Water ran cold down my back, mud sucking at boots as we pulled tight. Her shoulder brushed mine once, close in the chaos, breath visible in the chill. We knotted corners, wind howling through the half-built shell, lightning cracking distant. Soaked to the bone, we worked wordless, the crew's shouts fading behind the roar. Her cap dripped steady, dark hair plastered under. But she didn't falter. Ropes hauled with that same grip, steady against the pull. Close quarters came under the trailer awning after, rain pounding the metal roof like endless nails. We huddled there, water pooling at our feet, steam rising faint from our skin in the sudden shelter. Crew scattered to trucks, but we stayed, shaking out tarps, checking for tears. Her sleeve rode up then, cuff caught on a hook, fabric clinging wet. There it was again, the scar, gleaming slick in the dim light, water tracing its jagged curve like it lived. Pale line twisting up her forearm, edges stark against the rain-flushed skin. I opened my mouth, question on my tongue, but held it. Swallowed the words, eyes flicking away quick. She tugged the sleeve down, slow, deliberate, water beating on the fabric. No glance my way, just back to the tarp, folding it tight. The air under the awning felt smaller, charged with the unsaid, rain drumming our silence. Task demands pulled us out again soon after, the wind easing just enough to lift panels back into place. 2 big sheets of plywood, warp slight from the wet, needed hauling to the upper frame. Crew was scattered, so it was us, gripping edges, muscles straining as we heaved. Her end lifted smooth, arms tensing under the soaked shirt, veins standing against the load. Rain slicked everything, footing treacherous in the mud, but we moved as one, steps synced without plan. My gaze lingered then, unbidden, on the mark's curve where sleeve gapped again, faint white against the pull of her bicep, twisting with the effort. It pulled at me, that line, raw in the wet, a story etched in skin. We slotted the first panel, nails waiting, her breath coming steady, close enough to feel the warmth cut the chill. Second one went harder, wind gusting back, panel bucking in our hands. "Hold steady," she said then. First words in days. Voice low but clear over the rain. Rough like gravel under tires, but directed at me. Eyes meeting mine for a beat. Heart thudded like a mallet on oak, sudden and deep in my chest. I nodded, grip tightening, and we locked it in place, hammers swinging after. Words hung there, simple but heavy, cracking the week's quiet just enough. Crew hollered from afar, but that exchange echoed, her voice stirring the ache lower, mixing want with the storm's raw edge. Aftermath settled as the rain tapered, sky gray but holding. Crew dispersed quick, trucks churning mud, engines fading down the drive. Sight slick and empty, water sheeting off beams. I wiped my face, jacket heavy, and turned to her. "Ride? Roads'll be rivers." She shook her head once, cap brim dripping, eyes on the horizon. Grabbed her tools, sodden box thudding into the truck bed. Walked into the mud then, boots sinking deep, toward her rig. Engine caught rough, lights cutting yellow through the haze as she pulled away, taillights blurring in the mist. I stood there, water dripping from my hair, the offer hanging unanswered. Alone in the cab after, door thudding shut, rain pattered the roof, soft now. Water dripped from sleeves, pooling on the seat, chill seeping in. I cranked the heat, wiper swiping slow, but the nearness replayed. Her shoulder brush, the scar gleaming, that hold steady, rough in my ear. Desire mixed with the week's ache then, low and insistent, like heat building under cold soil. Hands on the wheel, knuckles white, I traced the moment in mind. Her tension, the curve of her arm, want pulling sharp. Roads wound slick, fields flooding at edges. But inside the cab felt tighter, the pull toward her undeniable. Night's grip tightened back at the cabin. Bed feels empty under the quilt. Damp clothes hung by the stove. Fire crackled low, casting shadows on the walls, but sleep evaded, sheets cold against skin. Her silence weighed then, a press toward confession, words building unsaid. The scar haunted, wet gleam imagined, stirring deeper than regret. Want for her story, her touch. The break in her guard. Rural dark pressed in, wind rattling windows, the ache settling like roots in clay. Weekend loomed empty, isolation stretching everything. Monday would bring the breaking point. Monday arrived with the sky scraped clean, blue stretching wide over the fields like a fresh sheet of plywood. Weekend isolation had gnawed at me, cabin walls closing in, her silence replaying in the quiet hours. I drove in early, thermos tightened my grip, the gravel road bumping under tires. Sight delays from the storm lingered, mud hardened in ruts, panels warped slight from the wet. Crew trickled in slow, grumbling about the setback, tools dragged out with less snap. Lena's truck sat there already, her figure at the east frame, installing trim with that flawless precision. Nails sank clean, edges aligned perfect, but distance clung to her like the dew on the beams. She worked alone, cap low, sleeves buttoned against the morning chill. Tension hung in the air, thick as the scent of drying earth, pulling at me with every step I took. Work pushed forward uneven, the delays forcing reroutes on the schedule. I oversaw the crew, clipboard heavy, calling adjustments to the joist runs. But her corner drew me, the way she planed a board smooth, shavings curling to the ground like pale ribbons. Flawless, always. Cuts true, fits tight. But the quiet between us stretched, a gap wider than the open studs. By mid-morning, resolve built in me, low and steady, like heat rising from the soil. I couldn't carry the weight anymore, the week's ache pressing toward this. During the next install, a row of window frames needing set, I waited for the crew to scatter to brakes. She was last, leveling the sill, hammer paused mid-swing. I stepped close, voice low over the distant thud of work. "Lena, that scar. I didn't mean to pry, it's just, I see it. Not as a flaw, as you." She froze then, hammer gripped tight, knuckles paling against the handle, eyes narrowed under the cap's brim, sharp as a chisel edge, flicking to mine in the daylight. Wind sifted through the frame, carrying the faint tang of pine sap. But time slowed there, her breath held. A beat passed. Then another, her jaw working, silent. Then something shifted. Eyes softened, the frost melting slow, like sun on hard ground. She set the hammer down, deliberate, wood thudding soft. Rolled her sleeve fully then, cuff unbuttoned with steady fingers, fabric bunching at her elbow. Scar exposed in the full light, jagged lines snaking up her forearm, pale ridges twisting like a river cut through clay. Edges faded, rough. 3 inches of old story, stark against the tan of her skin. No hiding now, just there, breathing with her. Story spilled after that, words low and rough, like gravel shifted under boot. She leaned against the beam, eyes on the mark, not me. Farm accident, childhood. Dad's old tractor. Blade caught my arm when I climbed too close. Merely lost it. Voice cracked slight on the edge, then steadied. He was fixing the harvester, yelling at me to stay back. But I didn't. Blood everywhere, soil turning red. Doc stitched it, but the pain? Tied to losing him after. Heart attack 2 years later. Haven't shown it since. Folks here, they see weakness, they push. Her fingers trace the line light, almost absent, the rural sun warming the air around us. Loss hung in her words, heavy as the fields after harvest, hidden under that armor for years. In this small world, scars like that invited questions, judgments from neighbors who guarded their own brakes tight. Vulnerability shared then, the air shifting thick between us. I stepped closer, beam rough at my back, voice matching her low. I get hiding. My marks are invisible ones. Past loves in this town, doors slammed when they found out. Whispers in the diner, jobs lost quiet. Learn to button up too. Keep the want buried. Words came raw, pulled from the quiet nights I'd spent alone. The ache of queer hearts navigating conservative lines. Her eyes met mine full now, soft but unflinching, seeing the echo in me. The weak silence cracked open, not with anger, but recognition, like 2 fences mended side by side. Hands met after, slow, her arm still extended. My fingers brushed the scarlight, tracing the ridge, tentative, skin warm under the calluses. Rough texture met smooth fade, a map of old pain yielding to touch. She didn't pull away, breath catching slight, eyes holding mine. Air thickened then, charged with the want built over days, low pull like wind through the open frame. Heat rose in my chest, desire mixing with the reveal, her strength close enough to feel. Pulse thudded steady, the sight's distant hum fading. Just us in that moment, scar bridged, walls thinning. Crew stayed unaware, scattered to their tasks, hammers resuming in rhythm. We pulled apart slow, sleeve rolling down but looser now, buttons half done. Returned to the install, my hands steady on the frame, hers nailing the sill true. But glances carried heat after, eyes meeting over tools, silence broken into something warmer. A nod here, a shared look there, want lingering in the space, pulling us through the work. Sight moved forward, delays easing, but the shift settled deep, connection weaving amid the build. The reveal opened doors. Remaining days wove connection amid the build. Rhythm shifted after that, subtle as the sun warming cold soil. Joint decisions came easier now. Blueprints spread on the truck hood, our shoulders close over the lines. Finishes for the interior, stains, trim details. She leaned in, voice warming like creek water after thaw. Walnut here, dark to match the beams. Pulls the light in. I nodded, pencil scratching notes, her suggestions fitting seamless. No more one words. Explanations flowed low, steady, drawing the crew's rhythm tighter. Hammers thudded around us, but our talks lingered, eyes meeting over measurements. Her laughs came rare, a quiet huff at a crooked nail, or my fumbled joke about city permits. Real, though, spark in her eyes, cracking the guard wider. Off-site moment hit midweek. Lunch break stretching under a sky clear as fresh-cut pine. Diner down the road, gravel lot half full with farm trucks. the air thick with fry grease and coffee steam. We slid into a booth, vinyl cracking under us, menus sticky from years of hands. Plates came quick. Eggs for her, simple. Hash for me. Forks scraping as talk turned easy. Dreams slipped out then, her roots in carpentry deep as fence posts. Started on the farm, fixing sheds after storms. Dad's hands on mine, showing the angle. Kept me grounded when everything shifted. Voice low over the clink of dishes, eyes on her plate but seeing back. I shared mine. Management as escape from desk jobs that choked, chasing builds like this. Open land over concrete. Wanted space to breathe. This town's tight, but the work, it lets air in. She nodded, fork pausing. The booth feeling smaller, our knees brushing under the table. Scar stayed sleeved, but no wall now. Just shared ground. Dreams weaving like roots under soil. Physical pull grew steady after. Touches light, but sure. Dust from sanding clouded the air one afternoon, fine grit settling on skin like morning dew. She wiped her brow, sawdust clinging to her shoulder, pale flecks against the faded shirt. I reached without thinking, brushing it off slow, fingers grazing the fabric, warm from her. Got you. Her breath caught slight, eyes flicking to mine, but she didn't pull away. Scar now a bridge, not barrier. Its line imagined under my touch from days before, pulling want, low and real. Heat flushed in the space between, sight humming around us. But that moment held, her shoulder solid under my hand. We moved on, tools resuming, but the contact echoed, desire settling like dust after a cut. Evening invite came Friday, sun dipping low, casting gold over the half-complete frame. Crew packed early, trucks rumbling out, leaving the site quiet save for wind in the studs. She paused by her rig, tools loaded, cap tilted back. Beers after? Bar by the river. Quiet spot. Words casual, but eyes held the question. Warm now. I nodded quick, heart thudding like a mallet on fresh wood. Yeah, meet you there. Drove separate, road winding past hayfields, river glinting silver in the dusk. Bar was old, wood-paneled, neon faint over scarred tables. Few locals nursed drinks, jukebox humming low country. We claimed a corner booth, bottles sweating cold, foam hissing as we tapped. Stories flowed then, like the river nearby, muddy after rain, carrying silt from upstream. Her farm days, the tractor's shadow, lost tying tight to the land. I shared fragments, nights alone in rentals, the ache of hidden wants in small towns. Laughter slipped in, dry at first, her huff over a spilled beer story, then fuller, warming the dim space. Intimate turn built slow under the table, air thick with the scent of hops and worn leather. Hands drifted, mine brushing hers on the scarred wood, fingers linking tentative. Calluses met calluses, rough but sure, her grip tightening like a nailed joint. Pulse thrummed there, want resolving in the hold, eyes locking over bottle rims. Booth shadows deepened, river murmuring outside. But the world narrowed to that touch, warm, unyielding. Kiss came sure after, slow across the table. Her lips meeting mine, soft but insistent. Taste of beer lingered, breath mingling warm, her free hand cupping my jaw. Time stretched, the bar's hum fading, desire pouring through like sunlight after storm. Pulled back breathless, foreheads close, smiles faint but real. No rush, just the certainty settling deep. Reflection hit driving home, stars pricking the black sky, river's rush faint in the rear view. Her strength mirrored mine, forged in hard land, scarred but standing. In this town, with its church steeples and side glances, we'd found quiet rebellion. Not loud, but steady, like frames rising against wind. Queer hearts here beat hidden, but ours synced now, pulling through the dust. Build neared end that week, frames rising solid under our hands, walls closing tight. Like us, scarred but standing, connection woven deep in the grain. Project wraps, but our story peaks in final clarity. Final day dawned crisp, air sharp with the scent of turned earth. The build standing complete against the wide sky. Inspector arrived mid-morning, truck kicking dust down the drive, clipboard in hand as he circled the frame. We watched from the trailer steps, crew hushed, tools idle for once. He measured angles, tapped walls, nodded at the solid lines, headers true, siding flush, no give under his boot. Passes clean, he said, signing off with a grunt.
Crew erupted then, whoops cutting the quiet.
High fives slapping amid the half-packed boxes. Beers cracked early, foam spilling over tailgates, laughter rolling like thunder over the fields. Lena and I stood at the edge. Her cap tilted back, my thermos forgotten. Our eyes met across the gravel, a knowing look passing. Heat in it, steady as the structure we'd raised. No words needed. The week's want lingered there. Walls we'd built together, stronger than wood. Private close came as the sun dipped, crew thinning out, engines rumbling farewell. Sight emptied slow, shadows stretching long over the finished shell. Lena and I packed tools last, her box thudding beside mine, saws nesting neat. She paused, sleeve loose now, scar peeking faint. Thanks for seeing, she said low, voice rough like gravel warmed by day. Not the mark, the me. I nodded, hand brushing hers on the handle, warmth cutting the cooling air. Scar sleeved again, button snapped casual, but walls down full. Her eyes open, mine meeting without guard. We hefted the boxes, steps synced to the trucks, the air between us thick with the shift. Drive away started separate, my tires crunching first, her truck following close in the rear view. Road wound up to the overlook, fields dropping to the river below, horizon burning orange. I pulled over, dust settling, and she stopped beside, door creaking open. We met at the edge, boots on the lip, wind sifting through our hair. Hands clasped then, fingers lacing tight, calluses pressing real against the pull. View stretched endless, but the anchor was there. Love, budding in the dust and silence, roots taking in this hard land. We named it Quiet after, words low against the dusk. This, us. It's real. Her grip tightened, promise in the hold. Future hinted and plans whispered. More builds, maybe together, beyond the site. Nights at the cabin, mornings shared. Resilience and queer hearts here. Beating steady against the wind, scarred but whole. The scar faded in memory, but the want stayed, pulling us closer each day. If this quiet ache resonates, share your own hidden marks below. Subscribe for more stories of finding strength in the unspoken.